We must do more, and he wants Congress to act because enough is enough. In his State of the Union, the president called on Congress to do something to stop the epidemic of gun violence, tearing families apart, tearing communities apart. How many more children have to be murdered before Republicans in Congress will step up and act to pass the assault weapons ban, to close loopholes in our background check system, or to require the safe storage of guns? We need to do something. Once again, the president calls on Congress to do something before another child is senselessly killed in a preventable act of gun violence. Again, we need to do something.
Well, typically I don't like to get into trying to analyze the situation right after it happens. I've seen people, usual YouTubers, get on and produce their videos just to be the first to, jump on and bring glory to themselves. I usually like to put things away and pray about it for a couple of days and see what it is that God wants us to see from this situation. Well, today we have to take a look at the school shootings in Nashville. And believe me, our prayers go out to the parents of the 3 children that were killed and the 3 teachers or workers there at the school that lost their lives in the shooting. And when we look at it, it's, well, there's nothing wrong with praying. I'd like to also have a shout out to the weatherman that stopped in the middle of his report on the tornadoes in Kentucky and said a prayer live on TV. I mean, I wish we saw more of that. That's basically what this country really needs. Anyway, getting back to this school shooting, it turned out that the shooter was a boy that decided to turn into a girl. And it didn't take long praying about that situation to see that, there's 2 factors. Number one is what kind of chemicals and shots are they taking? And what's, these things are supposed to be doing changes, physical changes within the body. That's what the drugs are designed to do. But what kind of psychological changes are these drugs doing to the victims that are deciding to go through sex changes? So that's number one is the chemicals. The second thing we gotta take a closer look on, and when I was praying, this hit me like a ton of bricks, is when these people go through these sex changes, they meet with a counselor. They undergo a significant amount of counseling. And I think these are licensed counselors too. Has anybody looked at what these counselors are telling these people? Are these counselors radical activists that are filling these people's heads with all kinds of hate and violence and telling them that the world is against them and doing more harm than good? We really got to take a look into this. This is, as soon as I started praying, I saw that. So we actually need to get Congress to work together to start looking into these sex changes. Number one, the drugs. Does anybody know what the long-term effects are? Obviously, we've got this situation right now, and as we've seen, and the word on the streets is a number of these recent mass shootings over the last year or two were done by trans people. Are we seeing the tip of the iceberg of something that's happening? It sounds like some kind of science fiction movie, or that all of a sudden, boom, somebody's in control and can just trigger these people into the most violent acts in the world because they have some kind of control over their heads. Is that true, or is that just a theory? Hate to say it, but let me see, in the last 2.5, 3 years, it's like 100% of the theories have turned out to be true. The second thing is we got to look at what's being done, what's being researched on these things, the effects of the drugs. What's the long term? Are these drugs actually causing depression? And if this is a new field of science, are the counselors qualified to counsel and help these people through the depression? Or, like I said, are these counselors radical gay activists that are doing more harm than good? I would think that these counselors are state licensed and they should be investigated. I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of lawsuits and everything from the families of these shooters, but they have to look into who is responsible for whatever procedures this person was going through, the change from a boy into a girl, and find out what, if any of those changes contributed to obviously a mental breakdown. Another thing we gotta kind of take a look at is, how did this person purchase firearms? Obviously, well, okay, I'm speculating. They were taking a number of drugs. On the questionnaire, when you go in to buy a firearm, there's questions on there about taking drugs. Do we need states to start passing laws to include the fact that that question about drugs includes any type of body or psychological altering drugs? And the fact of the matter is that they're undergoing extensive counseling. Do you really want to have these people walking around with firearms when they're undergoing extensive psychological counseling? I mean, to me, it seems logical to think that that's why we have questionnaires on applications for firearms, to make sure that people that don't have their wiring in their brain completely right don't have access to firearms. I think if we take a look at, the push for gun control, I think there's a couple of things that we should be able to all agree on. And bringing up gun control, I mean, immediately after this happened, within minutes, of course, we got a press release from the White House that wants to take everybody's guns away. No mention about looking into the issues, the life, the psychological problems this person may have been suffering. No, let's all forget that. Let's forget the fact that this person needed help. There's no doubt about it. This person needs help. Come on, a 6-year-old. I mean, you question the survivors in that grade school, and every single one of them is going to tell you that person needed help. But where was that help? The White House has absolutely no inclination or no plans to give people like that any help, and they're supposed to be the ones doing the bragging for the last 2 years about how they represent the gay community and the trans community, and they're the ones that are hiring this diversified cabinet. Let's take a look at that diversified cabinet. First of all, we'll take a look at Rachel Levine, who is the Admiral of the United States Public Health Service. In other words, she's in charge of public health for the United States. We don't know what kind of drugs she's taken to change over from a man to a woman, or what kind of counseling she's undergone. But she seems to be 100% behind all these sex changes, insisting they're perfectly safe, insisting that we need to spend billions of dollars to make this available to everyone. I mean, she's got her own agenda to serve. And we're not going to hear any negative aspects of those drugs, counseling, or surgical procedures. Then, if we look a little bit deeper, and this is the dangerous one that we got to take a look at, what about General Milley? I mean, he's in charge of the armed forces, and I really don't want to go into the dangers that poses, but there we go. On top of that, we've got Sam Britton, the guy that has been hitting the news with his passion for stealing luggage. I mean, you put that little group together, are we talking about people that are really stable? The fact of the matter is that something is showing that these people that are undergoing these sex changes are having some type of emotional problems. And when we look at the White House response of, we're going to blame the gun here, I mean, within seconds, the White House jumped on, we got to, take away all the guns. I mean, where do we get that from? There's no thought going into any of this. There's no plans. There's no, what do they call it, bipartisan representation anymore. They've got their agenda. And it's kind of sad that they keep on using every single one of these issues as an excuse to push their anti-gun legislation. We need to really take a step back and number one, look at this counseling. All of these gun laws are controlled by the state. Write your representatives. Tell them you've got a concern. Tell them we need to look into these drugs that these people are receiving before they grant them, a gun license, or they agree to sell them firearms. And we also need to get the states to look into these people that are licensed counselors, licensed by the states. What are they teaching? Interview the people that they've been counseling. Get an idea of what's being pushed on their agenda. We've all been under the severe strain of these psych ops since the 2020 election. We know the media has been pushing an agenda. We know they've been using social media to push an agenda. We've heard all the speeches from all the Democrats that want to make a name for themselves pushing their agenda. And we know that 90% of the time they're lying to us. Is it too much to ask to take a look at these psychologists that are talking to these people and counseling them on these sex changes to find out what they're being told. I mean, that's just an idea, but I think it's something that needs to be done, something we need to push the agenda on. Most conservatives don't want anything to do with any type of gun control, but I think we need to stand up and take a practical look at the fact that we don't want to put firearms in people that are unstable. And if we can focus a law that says we're going to put a temporary restraint and include these drugs that these people are taking for sex changes, and take a look at the counseling and find out what caused this problem. Something caused that girl or that guy in Nashville to snap. Something pushed that person. And unfortunately, they say the suspect was shot and killed. You can't really do an interview. And as they put the pieces together from what they found in the house, from what they find in social media, and we can't even trust that. We know if they send the FBI on it, they're going to have a long list of what they can report and what reported. So we need our state legislators to take a look into this issue, to actually make an informed decision. And then we need to be behind them. I mean, 3 children died and 3 other people died, and I sure hate to see their lives sacrificed for absolutely nothing. So let's see what unfolds in the next couple of days and weeks, and start getting some good ideas, posting them on social media and trying to fight this with memes or minis, whatever they call them, is not going to work. Writing letters to our state legislators. And if you've got Democrats for state legislators, you're probably not going to hear back from them, but if they get enough emails, maybe they're going to finally realize that, the American public, let's face it, that people that are drilled with the same message over and over and over again, eventually are going to take a closer look at it. They're going to do some investigation. I mean, that's what conservatives do. We're hit with the same messages day in, day out by the news and the media and all this other stuff. And we take a closer look into it. Maybe someday we can get a couple of Democrats to actually do the same thing. Dig into it, take a closer look into it, and actually start fulfilling their campaign promises of making a better life and showing some concern for these minorities and special interest groups that they claim they represent. Anyway, your suggestions are always welcome. Leave a comment. Don't forget to share this thing. Subscribe. Hit the little like thing. The same general speech that every YouTuber makes.